it is likely on
a U.S. official said North Korea's tested what probably was a medium-range ballistic missile. The official says the missile broke up a couple of minutes after launch and the pieces fell into the Sea of Japan. South Korea's foreign minister warned if the international community does not respond to North Korea's repeated provocations now, that they will only further feed the appetite of the trigger-happy regime in Pyongyang. Yoon Byung-se told the UN Security Council that it should take additional punitive measures before North Korea launches more ballistic missiles, and not afterward.
So, Amara, you're a Verizon engineer. Tell me, what's one really good reason why the Samsung Galaxy S8 is better on Verizon?
Well, we have the largest 4G LTE network in America.
Yeah, that's a pretty good reason.
And the most reliable. And with unlimited, you get full HD video.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's two, maybe even three reasons right there.
It's exactly three.
Okay, sure, whatever you say.
If you really, really want the best, switch to Verizon Unlimited and get the Galaxy S8 for just $15 a month.
I saw you take those phones, you know.
No, you didn't.
North Korea is sure acting like they're ready for war. They fired hundreds of rockets and torpedoes at mock warships on Tuesday, its largest live-fire artillery drill ever. When it comes to North Korea, these things tend to land on significant dates. This time, the drill marked the 85th anniversary of the creation of the North Korean army. And of course, Kim Jong-un made himself seen by state media. He saluted his military as he watched the exercises. The next day, the U.S. and South Korea had their own answer. They did their own live-fire drills near the North Korean border. The back and forth comes as tensions continue to rise between the North and the U.S. President Donald Trump has gone after North Korea in the last couple of days. He spoke with the United Nations Security Council on Monday.
The status quo in North Korea is also unacceptable. This is a real threat to the world, whether we want to talk about it or not.
A senior analyst at the Brookings Institution told CBS the constant threats could cause a, quote, needless stumble into war.
A United States official said North Korea has launched a missile that landed in the Sea of Japan. The test-fired missile probably was a medium-range ballistic missile called a KN-17. The launch came hours after U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson addressed a special meeting at the United Nations. He called for increased pressure on North Korea. Uruguay UN Ambassador Elbio Rosselli condemned the apparent missile test, saying that it was disgraceful and against international law and humanity.
By the time you head to the bank and wait to get approved for a home loan, that newly listed mid-century ranch with the garden patio will be gone. Or you could push that button. Skip the bank, skip the waiting, and go completely online. Get the confidence that comes from a secure, qualified mortgage approval in minutes. Lift the burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
We have breaking news coming into us right now. We were just getting word that North Korea has fired another test missile. It comes as tension continue to grow between the United States and North Korea over nuclear weapons. Our David Spunt is in our satellite center right now to tell you more. David?
Yuki, we are getting this information into our newsroom by the minute. We're told by South Korea's news agency that this missile was launched early Saturday morning North Korean time. This is the latest test missile to be launched by North Korea, and this comes just hours after Secretary of State Rex Tillerson addressed the United Nations. On Friday, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson warned UN Security Council members it is only a matter of time before North Korea's missiles can reach the U.S. mainland.
Failing to act now on the most pressing security issue in the world may bring catastrophic consequences.
Tillerson urged UN members to enforce sanctions against North Korea. His UN visit follows a warning from President Trump during an interview with Reuters.
Well, there's a chance that we could end up having a major conflict with North Korea. Absolutely.
But North Korea remains defiant. This morning, state-run television aired video of this week's massive live-fire exercise. Leader Kim Jong-un and his officers are seen cheering.
Those of us in the national security business predicted that the first major test of the Trump administration would come from North Korea.
Retired Army Colonel Jack Tumarchio lives in Delaware County and was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush.
He seems to be an unpredictable guy, but then again, the whole regime is unpredictable. I even question whether he is the head of state, but I question whether is he really the power in the country. That is unknown.
Foreign ministers from China, Japan, South Korea, and Britain attended today's UN meeting, a sign of just how serious other nations are taking the standoff with North Korea.
When you deal with a country that is unreliable, that has a government that is hard to figure out, the stakes go up as to what they will or will not do.
And to recap that breaking news, we learned that North Korea fired another test missile. We don't know exactly where that missile has landed, if it has landed. The last test missile North Korea fired actually exploded in the air. Don't know if that's the case this time. Japan is concerned because Japanese officials say they have only 10 minutes to deal with these type of test missiles. We will have much more on this report coming up tonight on the CBS Evening News. David Spunt, CBS 3 Eyewitness News.
David, thank you.
My I Love is Season 1, Episode 1.
Eye Love is all the things we love to do with our eyes, but it's also having a chat with your eye doctor about your dry eye symptoms, because it could be chronic dry eye. Feel the love at myeyelove.com.
North Korea test firing a ballistic missile on Saturday, but according to South Korea's military, it appears to have failed. The launch defying intense pressure from the United States and China, and coming just hours after U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's stern warning Friday of catastrophic consequences if North Korea's nuclear program is not reined in.
The threat of a North Korean nuclear attack on Seoul or Tokyo is real. And it is likely only a matter of time before North Korea develops the capability to strike the U.S. mainland.
In his first visit to the United Nations, Tillerson blamed the UN's failure to enforce existing sanctions on Pyongyang for the tensions on the Korean peninsula that have been ratcheting up for weeks. Washington has been looking to Beijing for help in dealing with the North Korean nuclear threat, but on Friday, Security Council members Russia and China pushed back on Tillerson's tough talk. Tillerson saying he's open to talks under the condition that Pyongyang dismantle its weapons program first, while Beijing is pushing for talks followed by action later. North Korea did not take part in Friday's meeting at the UN. And on Friday evening, President Trump weighed in, saying the test disrespected China and calling the failed launch bad.
Are you enrolling in Medicare Part D for the first time and looking to save money? Walgreens can help. With $0 copays on select plans, you can save big. Find out if you can save at Walgreens today.
A
According to South Korea, North Korea fired a ballistic missile into the waters off its east coast. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff reported the missile was fired from the northeastern coastal town of Sinpo Wednesday morning. It flew approximately 37 miles. The firing was made as U.S. and South Korean troops conducted annual military drills. North Korea often responds to the drills with its own military training. 2 weeks ago, South Korean and U.S. militaries said they detected a failed North Korean ballistic missile launch.
At Custom Ink, you can make custom t-shirts that always make the day. With the best collection of styles and graphics to choose from, it's easy to go online and create custom t-shirts and more for all of life's events. Go to customink.com to get started today.
North Korea test-fired a ballistic missile from a region north of the capital, Pyongyang, Yonhap news agency has reported. The South Korean military said the test appeared to have failed, blowing up a few seconds into flight. It comes just hours after the U.S. Secretary of State called on the UN to help force North Korea to give up its nuclear ambitions, and after President Trump warned a major conflict with Pyongyang over its missile programs was possible.
Life could be easy for him. I could take you up in paradise. Easy for you. Next Guard Shoes. Protection made easy. Hello, hello again.
Well, similar to previous tests, this one crashed into the Sea of Japan, and the U.S. Pacific Command says that it tracked the launch and that this medium-range ballistic missile did not pose a threat to the continental United States. Now, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson issued a very terse statement saying that the United States has spoken enough about North Korea. We have no further comment. Now, North Korea has test-fired ballistic missiles multiple times this year, but the timing of this one is particularly interesting because it comes one day before the meeting between President Trump and President Xi. President Trump and his advisors have already indicated that North Korea is going to be on the agenda at that meeting. And Rex Tillerson has been calling on China to put more influence and pressure on North Korea to curb its nuclear program. Overnight, White House officials had said that all options were on the table and that the clock is quickly running out. Now, China has said today that it sees no link between this test and the meeting between the two presidents, but the talk on social media here, as well as elsewhere, with people talking, is that this particular test is going to make it that much more difficult for President Xi at the meeting, and that he is going to be at a disadvantage while President Trump will have the leverage. Carl?
What we do every night is like something out of a strange dream, except that the next morning, it all makes sense. To power global e-commerce, FedEx networks are massive, far-reaching, and yes, a little magical. FedEx.com/dream.
My I Love is Season 1, Episode 1.
Eye love is all the things we love to do with our eyes, but it's also having a chat with your eye doctor about your dry eye symptoms, because it could be chronic dry eye. Feel the love at myielove.com.
It looks like North Korea just test-fired another ballistic missile. According to CNBC, the test failed. Now, when it comes to North Korea, specifics are usually pretty hazy. A news agency in South Korea says the country's analyzing what type of missile it was and how far it flew. This comes as tensions between the U.S. and North Korea continue to rise in recent months. In an interview with Reuters, President Donald Trump said it's possible for a, quote, major conflict with North Korea. Now, this is the second missile test by the North this month. The first one blew up almost immediately after it was launched. As a response to that first test, the U.S. and South Korea performed live-fire military drills off the North Korean coast.
At Custom Ink, you can make custom t-shirts that always make the day. With the best collection of styles and graphics to choose from, it's easy to go online and create custom t-shirts and more for all of life's events. Go to customink.com to get started today.
We've just gotten a report from a South Korean news agency, the largest in South Korea, that North Korea has test-fired a ballistic missile. That is all the detail we have. I have asked the White House for reaction, comment, what they know about this. Have not heard a response yet. This is a fresh report, but of course it comes at a time of extremely high tension between the United States and North Korea after President Trump in an interview yesterday said we could have a major conflict with them over their nuclear program. He, of course, is leaning on China to try to deter the North Koreans from advancing that program. But what we have just heard from the South Korean news agency is that North Korea at this moment of tension has test-fired a ballistic missile. We'll let you know when we have more details.
Any word, John, or details as to the success of that test fire? They've test fired in the past. They haven't always worked.
Oh, they often have not worked.
Yeah.
No, we have gotten no readout at all of the success or lack of success of this particular test.
I realize that $100,000 is not exactly a fortune.
103.
How long did it take you two to save that?
Oh, a long time.
Long time.
Then it's a fortune.
I told you we had a fortune.
Get closer to your investment goals with a conversation.
Who do you trust more to tell the truth, Trump's White House or the national political media? Based on a poll conducted April 25th and 26th by Morning Consult, more Americans would say the former. In fact, 37% of the participants sided with Trump's White House over 29% for the media. Moreover, just 38% expressed a lot or some trust that the president and his team are covered fairly. Expectedly, the divide was significant along party lines. 67% of Republicans compared to 36% of Democrats say the media was out of touch with everyday Americans, notes Morning Consult. 2,006 adults participated in the poll. Another recent poll conducted by Monmouth University shed some light on how the president's fake news allegations and overall skepticism of the press have impacted Americans' trust in information offered by both him and news organizations. Monmouth's poll pitted Trump against only 3 popular outlets, ABC News, Fox News, and MSNBC. Overall, those surveyed found the network's reporting to be more reliable, even though they believe all mentioned dip into fake news territory on occasion. President Trump and many Republicans intend to move forward with another effort to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. However, based on an ABC News Washington Post poll conducted between April 17th and 20th, most Americans prefer they not do that. 61% of respondents expressed support for keeping and working to improve the health care plan in place, while only 37% indicated they'd like to see it gone. 79% said Trump should invest in the Affordable Care Act's success rather than expend time and energy ensuring its failure. A previous ABC Post poll on the matter, which was conducted in January, produced more even results. 46% opposed to repeal and 47% in favor. Notably at that time, the option of improvement was not presented, and the details of the proposed replacement were not yet known.
If you head to the bank and wait to get approved for a mortgage, that newly listed branch will be gone. Or you could push that button. Skip the bank. Get approved in minutes. Lift the burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner both have official White House roles. She is a top advisor to the president, her father, and Kushner is leading the Office of American Innovation. But the majority of Americans think it's inappropriate for them to have significant roles in D.C. About 53% of those in a recent Quinnipiac University poll say it's inappropriate. Still, more registered voters think Ivanka's role is slightly more appropriate than her husband's, 36% to 32%. But in general, the Trump family isn't very popular, and no immediate family members had a greater favorability than 40%. Ivanka is viewed more favorably than Kushner. 36% view the first daughter favorably, while only 15% viewed Trump's son-in-law positively. And according to the poll, Trump himself is slightly more popular than his daughter, with 39% favorability.
Hey, allergy muddlers, are you one sneeze away from being voted out of the carpool? Try Zyrtec. It starts working hard at hour 1 and works twice as hard when you take it again the next day. Stick with Zyrtec and muddle no more.
White House Stress Secretary Sean Spicer tried to downplay the issues at his press briefing this afternoon. He did it in an interesting way. He invited a group of children in the room, and he told them the egg roll doesn't matter because there's no such thing as the Easter Bunny anyway. So he's had a rough week. You know, before he was press secretary, Sean Spicer actually played the Easter Bunny at the egg roll during the Bush administration. That's not a fake picture. That's the real thing, which means this week, for the first time maybe in history, we got to see the Easter Bunny apologize for comments about the Holocaust.
Assad has done bad things, and to try to make any kind of comparison is a mistake.
To be clear, you recognize that Hitler obviously did kill.
Yes, I'm well aware of what he did.
Oh, how can you be mad at somebody so cute? It's impossible. He would love to have that. He would kill to have that job back right now.
You could spend days weeding through financial documents to refinance your home, or you could push that button, skip the paperwork, and get a mortgage solution in minutes. Lift the burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans.
The head of the FBI has denied Donald Trump's claim that former President Barack Obama wiretapped his 2016 election campaign. James Comey went on to tell a long-awaited House Intelligence Committee his agency has launched a criminal investigation into any potential collusion between Trump's campaign and the Kremlin.
And to clear the air regarding, we made no judgment on whether the Russians were successful in any way in having an impact on the election. I just want to be clear that's not in the report because we didn't opine on it. We didn't. That's not within our.
I understand that, but we're looking at Russian activities.
The combative White House spokesman Sean Spicer blamed the media for reports of Russian influence in the election.
Morning, the president had a meeting.
How do you gain trust?
When these people, both sides of the aisle, Obama appointees, elected Democrats, elected Republicans, say no evidence suggested, at some point, it's not just about me, it's about you. Take no for an answer.
Trump himself took to Twitter to denounce claims of collusion as so-called fake news.
The ongoing Russia affair could one day become very dangerous for the White House. Never before in U.S. history has there been a criminal investigation of possible collusion between a sitting president and a hostile foreign power. A stunning yet not surprising revelation by the FBI director. Whether Trump really cares is anybody's guess. Americans, though, do seem to care. Latest polls see Trump's approval rating at mere 37%. Stefan Grobe, Euronews, Washington.
My I Love is Season 1, Episode 1.
Eye Love is all the things we love to do with our eyes, but it's also having a chat with your eye doctor about your dry eye symptoms, because it could be chronic dry eye. Feel the love at myielove.com.
Meanwhile, Americans are weighing in on the president's first 100 days. Our new CBS News poll reflects opinions divided along party lines. WJZ's live political reporter Pat Warren reports the division couldn't be clearer. Pat?
Well, that's right. According to our CBS News poll, President Trump has the lowest first 100 days approval rating and the sharpest party divide in recent history.
Mr. President,
President Trump couldn't be clearer on what's expected of him.
The American people gave us clear instructions. It's time to get busy, get to work, and to get the job done.
But the majority in our CBS News poll, 53% disapprove of the job he's done in the first 100 days. The 41% that does approve is the lowest percentage in the 5 recent administrations, including Bill Clinton's less than half at 49%. By party, 83% of Republicans approve, but only 10% of Democrats. Usually about a third of the opposing party polled have come aboard by now.
We're about to take bold new steps to follow through on my pledge to buy American and hire American.
The president's supporters are sticking with him.
He's doing a great job!
Our CBS News poll shows Trump supporters remain solid, with 96% saying electing him was the right thing to do.
His supporters are still entirely with him. In our polling and other polling, you see that across the board. In fact, many of them have told us, this is what I voted for. They think he's changing Washington. They like the approach.
But when asked if 100 days is enough time to judge, 62% of Americans say no, it is not. And the White House seems to be in agreement with that. Back to you.
Pat, thank you. The poll was conducted April 21st to the 24th and has a 3-point margin of error.
Life could be a dream.
There's a world of happiness
In paradise.
in every chew.
If you would tell me I'm the
NexGuard Chews. Protection for dogs and puppies.
sweetheart. Hello again. Shaboom.
Nearly 40% of all news is fake, or so Americans believe, according to a poll conducted by the National Research Group and commissioned by The Hollywood Reporter. The 1,000 respondents, all frequent news consumers, split between Trump and Clinton supporters, said that only 62% of the news is real, with Clinton voters finding it a lot more real than Trump's. Additionally, Bill O'Reilly was voted the most negatively viewed news figure, with 24% of pollsters saying they felt very unfavorable toward the Fox host. Anderson Cooper, on the other hand, was voted most favorably, as 36% of respondents would describe him as improved and talented. Sean Hannity ranked as the second most unfavorably viewed news personality, with 20% of respondents. Megyn Kelly and Rachel Maddow both tied as very unfavorable, with 17% of those polled, followed by Brian Williams with 14%. The survey was conducted April 1st through 2nd. The same weekend, an expose by the New York Times revealed that O'Reilly had been accused of sexually harassing or verbally abusing 5 women, who collectively received $13 million in payments in exchange for not pursuing litigation or speaking publicly about the accusations. Since then, over 24 advertisers pulled out of the O'Reilly Factor. The scandal, however, has drawn in more viewers for his show, with O'Reilly Factor ratings increasing and topping all of cable news last week. So who ranks lowest or highest for you? Let me know in the comments, and see all the results from our TV news poll at thr.com. For the Hollywood Reporter News, I'm Paul Costabile. See you guys.
When bugs move in, we stress out and spray and spray. Well, we used to. Ortho Home Defense Indoor and Perimeter kills and prevents bugs for up to a year without odor, stains, or fuss. Ortho Home Defense. Bugs gone, stress gone.
Now to President Trump's first 100 days and the self-described America First president still having to deal with hotspots overseas, his vice president in Japan, and his approval ratings at historic lows.
Vice President Mike Pence sending a stern warning to North Korea during a visit to the USS Ronald Reagan in Japan.
We will defeat any attack and meet any use of conventional or nuclear weapons with an overwhelming and effective American response.
But today, continued fallout over the administration's statements last week that the president was sending an armada of U.S. vessels, including the USS Carl Vinson, to the Korean Peninsula as a show of force.
She will be on her way
and I'll determine when she gets there and where she actually operates.
Though in reality, the Vinson was nowhere near North Korea, something the White House is chalking up to a miscommunication.
The president believed that he might have spoken too quickly on this location of the vessel before it was actually arriving.
The president said we have an armada going towards the peninsula. That's a fact. It happened. It is happening, rather.
The vice president asked if the administration was purposely misleading regarding the warship's location.
Oh, I think not. Look, we've got an extraordinary commitment of U.S. forces in this region, and the Carl Vinson and that battle group are being deployed to the Sea of Japan.
But misstatements with a dictator as unpredictable as Kim Jong-un could prove especially dangerous, considering the propaganda Un feeds his country, fake images of North Korean missiles striking the United States. Meantime, two new polls showing mixed reviews for President Trump as he approaches the end of his first 100 days. On Trump's decision to bomb Syria, 61% approve, 31% disapprove. But on the president's approval ratings, 56% say they disapprove of the job he's doing, compared to 40% who do.
But a different national poll surveying Republicans and Republican-leaning independents showed that they're happy with the president's performance. 92% of them say that he's done as well or better than they expected him to. Only 7% say he's done worse.
Majority of young adults in the U.S. do not view President Trump to be a legitimate president, according to a recent poll of more than 1,700 people aged 18 to 30. The Gen Forward survey conducted by the University of Chicago's Black Youth Project and the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research between February 16th and March 6th determined that 57% consider his presidency to be illegitimate. However, the divide is more pronounced when the figure is broken down by race. As the study states, a majority of whites, 53%, says Trump is a legitimate president, while only 25% of African Americans, 36% of Asian Americans, and 28% of Latinos agree. By contrast, majorities of young adults of color, including 74% of African Americans, 60% of Asian Americans, say that Trump is an illegitimate president, a view shared by fewer, 47%. White. Young people of color also express concern about his ties with Russia. In general, 22% of participants approve of his performance as president, while 62% say they do not approve. Meanwhile, a Morning Consult Politico survey of registered voters March 9 through 13 found Trump appeared to head in a positive direction. A news release says that 52% of Americans approve of Trump's job performance, compared with a 49% approval rating shortly after Inauguration Day.
Every night is like something out of a strange dream, except that the next morning, it all makes sense. To power global e-commerce, FedEx networks are massive, far-reaching, and yes, a little magical. FedEx.com/dream.
We showed you the latest scalp tracking poll as President Trump now at 36% in his. We showed you the latest scalp tracking poll as President Trump now at 36% in his approval ratings. 57% disapprove of the job he's doing. That is below the all-time lows of Barack Obama, Bill Clinton,
oh my Lord,
and Gerald Ford. Obama hit his all-time low in 2011, 3 years into office. Back in 2011, Trump tweeted, Barack Obama has a record low 39% Gallup approval rating.
Why so high? To which one Twitter user, Brian Kloss, wrote yesterday, Donald Trump has a record low 36 approval Gallup rating. Why so high? Nick, the numbers are just, again, considering that this is happening the first 2 months of the administration, pretty shocking. Now, I mean, we've got to remember, Ronald Reagan was down to 35. In 1982, he was at the low point of his presidency, considered an absolute failure. 2 years later, he wins 49 states, and it's Morning in America again. So, you know, this is not...
polls change, right? So
polls change. So we have no idea. He could be at 55 2 months from now.
It's true. But to go back to something that we talked about after his inauguration, his speech, that was aimed at that 36% and just them, I think we're seeing a consequence of this, that if you govern for your base for a third of the country, then only a third of the country is going to support you. And the problem is, if you try and do complicated things in Congress, like tax reform, that require you to have some political capital and some strength, and some ability to bully if you have to, it's hard to do that if you're at a third of the country. It's just very hard to do.
Certainly his attacks, Eddie, on the press, his attacks on the courts, his attacks on just about everybody. Yes, it plays to his, quote, base. His base is 35, 36%. There are about 10% of Americans that voted for him because he was not Hillary Clinton.
Right.
His base is 35 or 36%, and that's what he has boiled it down to, because he has simply refused to listen to everybody that has told him you need to reach out and be more inclusive.
You know, what's interesting about that poll data is that when you drill down in it, you see 11% decrease among support among independent voters. Then you see for the first time white voters are dropping under 50% in terms of his support. And then when you look at white voters without a college degree, it fell from 48% to 42%.
You know,
so he's losing ground in areas that he can't lose ground.
And one of the great misreadings, and I've said it all along, so it's not like I'm looking at this poll and saying this, one of the great misreadings, Mike Bornicle, of Donald Trump's victory is that this represents a new moment in American political history. And the undervaluing constantly, and we do this all the time, we look at the last poll result and say, this is where America is, yay America, or, you know, how horrible. Hillary Clinton's ridiculously bad presidential campaign never gets factored into the equation when people are putting on sackcloth and ashes and talking about how horrible America is. This is Trump's base. It's 35 or 36%. Again, about 10% of the people just said, okay, Trump lies and he's corrupt. Hillary lies and she's corrupt. Okay, we voted for them before, and we think she's corrupt, and we think they've made $200 million cashing in on Access. Okay, let's try this other guy. He may be crazy as hell, but he's not a Bush or a Clinton. So let's try this. People have so discounted that, including and especially
the press.
The press?
And the president.
The president. Yeah. And our favorite player of the week, Steve Bannon. Oh, they're going to want me to be Vladimir Lenin and tear down the government because 65% of Americans are against us. I mean, what idiots.
Joe, every 4 or 8 years when this country does the last thing it does, perhaps communally, vote for President of the United States, the winner and the staffs are always accorded some sense of genius by the media. You know, James Carville and Paul Begala, they were geniuses.
You know, they were geniuses for about 2 months, and everybody said, get the idiots out of the White House.
Yeah, and so, you know, Steve Bannon.
Of course, they're not idiots. You're never as smart as people say you are, and you're never as dumb as people say you are.
That's right. It's like a baseball team. That's exactly right. But the larger point here, again, back to competence, and this is a very young administration. I don't want to embroider what's going on here. We're 66, 67 days into this presidency. A lot can change. A lot has already happened.
Yeah.
But on the 100th day of his presidency, I believe it's April 28th, the Congress is either going to default on the nation's debt or go forward, as we've been going forward.
By the way, anybody who thinks,
well, there you go,
it gets easier. So let me tell you what's going to happen here. This is going to be a turning point. Trump's going to find out once again he's not going to have the votes from Republicans to do this, and I'm not knocking Republicans. I refused to raise the debt limit to like $4 trillion back in 95 or 96. So I'm not knocking him. He's going to have to deal with Democrats, and if he wants to get his 36 to 56, he's going to have to fire Steve Bannon and anybody else who calls himself a Leninist who wants to destroy the American Republic and government, and start working with Republicans and Democrats and doing what 78% of Americans told NBC News a couple of weeks ago. They want their leaders to compromise and work with the other side and make Washington work again.
Not only that, but given who he is, given who you know who he is and who he has always been his entire life.
Personally, a charming guy.
And absolutely. And you have to know that because of his background, because of his nature, he's sitting there today alone, isolated, knowing that what he needs is a win.
He needs a win, and he has people around him that don't know how to deliver him that win. You know, he loves Tom Brady. And he loves the Patriots. Maybe this will help him understand. He is Tom Brady playing on a lousy team with the worst coaches in football. And even Tom Brady can't win a football game when you've got the lousiest coaches on the sidelines. Hey, why don't you do another quarterback sneak? But it's 4th and 17. Quarterback sneak left then.
Maybe you cheat.
I mean, that's what he's got right now. No, you're right, and we'll see what happens. But you know, it's pretty simple. Get rid of Steve Bannon. Find somebody who actually knows what's happening on Capitol Hill.
Try not to lie.
Stop tweeting, which even his supporters want him to stop tweeting. Pass a tax reform bill with the help of Democrats, and pass an infrastructure bill. And take a deep breath and look back and see that your 36% is suddenly 45%. And you're not the laughing stock of the world.
Okay, on that note, still ahead on Morning Joe, more on whether Devin Nunes should lose his top spot.
Why are we still asking this question? We answered that.
Because people are actually asking it, I guess.
Okay,
I don't know. Are
and
they?
we also have another question in MSNBC poll. Should we put our hands on hot stoves? You can answer that along with the Devin Nunes question.
We'll ask two of the members, Congressman Jim Himes and Eric Swalwell, plus Republican Congressman Raul Labrador, who went head-to-head with the White House over health care. Also,
statement by the head of the FBI that you got to come clean. Now, how does DOJ do that?
Well, we don't know what President Trump will tweet or what statement he will make, but the question becomes whether or not Department of Justice officials will answer the FBI Director James Comey's call for a rebuke of President Trump's assertion over the weekend that there was wiretapping done by U.S. intelligence officials of his campaign.
I'm lost. I believe Mr. Comey works for Mr. Sessions. That's Civics 101. Explain the next few days.
Well, so the FBI director calling on Attorney General Sessions, who heads the Department of Justice, to rebuke Donald Trump's assertion again about that wiretapping allegation. But that said, tomorrow, Tom, there is going to be a Senate hearing for Rod Rosenstein, who is President Trump's pick to be the #2 at the Justice Department. He will be the person in charge of leading any investigation. So all of these questions are going to be put to President Trump's nomination to be the Deputy Attorney General. Of course, we all remember Attorney General Sessions recused himself just last week.
Yeah, so Kevin, how many investigations are in place because of this, and when do we find out what the investigations uncover?
So, Francine, you have an open FBI investigation into several key members of President Trump's campaign. You also have, of course, the U.S. Joint Intelligence Committee taking a look and investigating several of the campaign actions as well. And then you have the potential for a new investigation. And again, that Senate hearing tomorrow, that would be led by the #2, the nominee at the Justice Department, Mr. Rosenstein. That he would be leading the new investigation. So at least 3 investigations in the works. This is going to continue.
But, Kevin, was President Trump serious when he said it? Is there any regret in the White House that this was an off-the-cuff comment?
No regret, but I can tell you that the sources that I'm speaking with over the weekend are within Trump's political orbit are a bit flummoxed, to say the least, that this assertion was made, particularly if there is no evidence. And so should there not be any evidence, this complicates matters, to say the least.
Kevin, help me here. Now, you're too young to remember this, but there was a guy named John Dean a few years ago who stopped everybody cold on a summer's afternoon. I believe he commented the other day that they should be worried about cover-ups. Is the FBI looking at the investigation of the actual things, or have they now moved on to also investigating so-called cover-ups?
Well, I think that there are a lot of questions right now that remain that are still unanswered, Tom. And I think that when you take a step back and you look at the folks that were surrounding this political environment during the campaign, and you look at where all of this is headed, there seems to be a lot of unanswered questions and the need for congressional testimony. And I would anticipate a lot of these people testifying before Congress in the months ahead.
I have a feeling that in the next election, you're going to be swamped with candidates, but you're not going to be wasting your time. You'll have plenty of those Democrats coming over, and you're going to say, no, sir, no, thank you. No, ma'am, perhaps, ma'am. It may be Pocahontas. Remember that. And she is not big for the NRA, that I can tell you.
Trump has to be held accountable. He's delivering one punch after another to working families, and he got to be called out on it. We beat back the biggest assault on health care in American history, and we did it without a blocking number of votes in either the House or the Senate. Instead of trying to shoot at everything on health care, we got focused and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You cannot repeal and run. You have to repeal and replace. The fact that so many people had gotten engaged, Facebook posts, emails, written town halls, protests, marches, it was democracy. I think the conversation changed. A lot more people around America started saying, wait a minute, we do have a health care problem. Costs are too high. We tried building health care the Republican way, and it didn't get any Republican support. I think pro-choice is under assault. I think that's what all of the defunding of Planned Parenthood is about. Don't kid yourself. That is a place we've got to be willing to fight. I am strongly pro-choice. I recognize, though, that not all of my colleagues agree with me, and I'll do everything I can to persuade them, but they are my colleagues, and that's just how it is. It does not dampen my energy in this fight. What I've done is I've really tried to focus on the go forward, and that there's much more energy around, my God, what has gone wrong, and tell me what I can do. That is very different from what it was like in 16 or in 14.
Say hello to the new Nest tea. No artificial colors or flavors, and no high fructose corn syrup. Less is more, with a simpler recipe for a more delicious taste. The new Nest tea. Get a taste now at nesttea.com.
Only one candidate in the general election came to speak to you, and that candidate is now the President of the United States standing before you again. I have a feeling that in the next election, you're going to be swamped with candidates, but you're not going to be wasting your time. You'll have plenty of those Democrats coming over, and you're going to say, no, sir, no, thank you. No, ma'am, perhaps, ma'am. It may be Pocahontas. Remember that. And she is not big for the NRA, that I can tell you.
Senator, thank you so much for being here. This is the book right here. This fight is our fight. Congrats on this. It just came out today. I want to talk to you about this. It's very interesting knowing about your life. But I also want to know just other things that's happening in the world. Let's talk about the Democratic Party. Because now, what is the plan? What is the plan for the next 4 years, or for the future? What are you thinking? What is the focus?
So for me, look, it's three things. The first one is we got to be in the fight. We cannot lay down and play dead. We got to be in this fight.
Yeah.
You bet. Part two, we cannot shoot at everything that moves. When Donald Trump, remember in the movie Up, the dog?
Yeah.
When he yells, squirrel, we cannot all go over there. Can't do it.
That's a very funny analogy. I never thought about that.
That's
right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the third one, what I mean by that really is we got to keep a focus not on what he says, not on what he tweets. We got to keep a focus on what he actually does, what he is doing to working families across this country. Yeah. He's been there for 100 days. I swear, it feels like dog years. You know, like he's been there forever. Yeah. But what's critical is to keep a focus on what he's actually done, because that's what he has to be held accountable for. Yeah. And then the third part, for me, we got to talk about our values. We got to talk about the reasons that we get up in the morning and what we fight for all day long and what we're still fighting for when we go to bed at night. And that comes down to something pretty straightforward to me. We get out there and fight for opportunity, not just for some of our kids, but we fight for opportunity for all of us. That's what it's about. Yeah.
How is it working with the GOP, and are people reaching across the aisle? I mean, because we have different politicians on, and they always go like, well, I want to try to work with the other side, the Democrats and Republicans working together. Is it happening?
So, look, could it happen? You bet it could. And I'll give you actually a very, very specific example of that. All during the campaign, Donald Trump said that he wanted to break up the big banks, that he was in favor of Glass-Steagall. They got to put in the Republican platform. It's in the Democratic platform. I've had a bill with John McCain and with Maria Cantwell and with Angus King that is the 21st century Glass-Steagall bill. Say, guys, you said you wanted to do this. Let's do it together. There's something bipartisan. We could work together to break up the big banks. What about it? Let's do it.
You just so with John McCain, but is this true? I heard that Mitch McConnell won't make eye contact with you. Is that real? He seems kind of like a quiet type of but I mean...
Maybe that's it. Maybe he's just being quiet.
Wait, but if you see him in the hallway, he won't look at you or talk to you?
Oh, come on. It's, I say hi. And, but...
Well, I mean, what does he say back?
Nothing.
Mitch McConnell, you have to say hi to Elizabeth Warren. Come on, how old are we now? This is silly. You have to be civil. Let's do this. We all have to work together here.
Yeah, we do have to work together.
This is crazy. This fight is our fight. What is the fight you're talking about here?
This is the fight about how we rebuild America. So look at it this way. I'm a kid who grew up in a family that had a lot of financial ups and downs. And at the end of the day, the only thing I ever wanted to do is I wanted to be a teacher. But you got to go to college to do that. There was no money. And I ended up graduating from a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. I am the daughter of a janitor who ended up as a Harvard professor and a United States senator because I grew up in an America that invested in kids like me, and I believe in that America all the way down to my toes.
Oh. Me too. That's great.
But that America is gone. Those opportunities are not there for our kids today. Today, 70% of kids who graduate from a public university have to borrow money to do it. And here's the part that, man, really sticks the knife in. The federal government is making billions of dollars in profits off the backs of those kids. Now, that's not a country that's living its values. I talk in the book about a young woman named Kai. She had the same kind of dreams I did. She had great plans. She's going to go off. She's going to be in the computer industry. And she gets our feet tangled up with a for-profit college. And when I pick her up in the book, she's 27 years old. She still hasn't gotten her diploma. She's got $100,000 in student loan debt, which she's trying to manage on the salary of a waitress. That's wrong. And that's not an America that's building dreams. That's an America that's crushing dreams. We can do better than that. And that's the fight we need to have. The fight for opportunity for all of our kids.
How do you even, where do you begin? Where do you begin with all that? I mean, everyone has like, I just barely paid off my student loans. I'm the host of the Tonight Show. Yeah.
But look, part of it are the things we need to do. There's no doubt about it. We need to reduce the interest rate on student loans. We need to make investments in public universities and investments in pre-K all the way through our educational system. We need to build infrastructure. We need to do these things. They create good jobs. We need to invest in research, in medical research, in scientific research, the things that build a growing and robust economy. We know the things we need to do. Yeah. The problem is we got to get out there and make them happen. We have to have the courage to get in the fight. So a big part of what this book is about is it tells the long arc story about what we did right and what we've done wrong, what's taken the legs out from underneath America's middle class. But what it really goes to is what we do about it. You know, I bring this book to the conclusion talking about the Women's March. There it is. It's the day after Donald Trump has been sworn in. And the question is, what are we going to do as a country? We are divided. There's hatred. He's heading this country in what I think is a terrible direction. And I go down to Boston Common, which is where we had our share of the march. And I'm in the car and I'm thinking about how are we going to build an army? How are we going to make our voices heard? And I look up and I see these people moving toward the Common. And it's women in pink pussy hats, and it's men pushing strollers, and it's kids on bicycles, and they're all congregating in Boston Common. And I look over and I see this man, and I see this little girl up on his shoulders, and she's got this hand-lettered sign. And the sign says, "I fight like a girl." And I thought, me too, baby. That's our army. That's how we're going to do it.
Beautiful thing.
But we got to be in this fight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can be in
no,
this.
we got to be in it. And I talk about a lot of ways to get in the fight. Because here's the deal. Democracy is not a machine that will go of itself. We can't just say once every 4 years, you know, okay, now it's time to start thinking about it, a few policies and so on. No, the world has changed in Washington. It's not only that the legs have been taken out from underneath hardworking families, middle-class families, working families, the working poor, the poor. It's more than that. It's that Donald Trump and the Republicans are now poised to deal a blow to the middle class, to working families from which they will never recover. And that means we've got to be in this fight. We've got to be in this fight every single day, and we can do it. Because when you get involved, when you get engaged, when you get active, it's not like you just have that much activism in you. It's that when you start to do it, you do it a little more, and then you do it a little more, and then your sister does it, and then you get your mom into it too, and then you get your brother and your cousin and the guy behind you in the grocery store. That's how we make change. That's how democracy works. This is our time in history.
This is what I'm talking
This is fun. We're going to do